Hey there, I'm Scott, and this is Tangents. Well, today I'm going to try something slightly different. It's just a little tweak, but basically what it is something inspired by this morning. I just got back from a check ride. So I have basically not a check ride, I guess it's a stage check. Big difference. Check ride is actually like a test. Stage check is sort of like, soft test. You go on a flight, you feel like it's a test, but it's not really. And one of the pieces of feedback that I got, overall I did actually reasonably okay, but there were a couple of things I kind of choked on or got a little confused on, which will get better. And this is the point of this, is just to learn. But got back to the debrief, and one of the things that the instructor said that really just kind of like clicked and hit home for me was that I'm too much of a passenger and not a pilot. And I think the thing about this is just in general, not just when I'm flying, but in life, I have a tendency to kind of go with the flow to almost a excessive amount, to my detriment, of course. And I think this is part of probably something that's holding me back, or has been holding me back a lot in life. And I do understand also, like it's dangerous to just hone in on something and say, aha, that's the one little missing piece of the puzzle that I've been fucking up. There's a tendency to do that. We all have, like, our brains like to do shit like that. But no, I do think this is actually a significant thing. And it's something that it's not something new to me. It's something I've known for a long time. I go to therapy like once every 2 or 3 weeks. It's something we talk about there in different words. Talk about it too. And it's something that, it's one of these things though, like you hear the same thing a bunch of times, and even though you kind of get it, it never really clicks as much. And then you hear it one time, and for whatever reason, the tumblers are just in the right place, and it seems to click more. And I think I've got that kind of at least absorbed to a greater extent. Hopefully, that's my kind of intention there. We'll see how things play out. But I definitely do feel like, there's a tendency. It's an interesting thing because I still want this to be tangents, but the difference is going to try to be, at least. Normally, I'm just kind of here, and I'm just a leaf flowing in a river. And the river takes me here, the river takes me there. I kind of bob around. Sometimes it's interesting, sometimes it's not, but it's not really directed. There's no intention there. There's no like volitional control. So what I'm going to try to do from really now on, and not just here, but in life, is not necessarily be more in control in the sense of being like a control freak, but being aware of where I am, trying to see where I want to be or what I want to do, and actually steering the plane to get there, and doing what it takes to put me there. When I'm here, that might just mean like taking the right tangents at the right time. One of the things that happened early on when I started recording audio, started doing college radio, was you'd get into a situation and you'd be like, oh shit, what do I do next? And I think part of this is just don't do that. And I kind of assimilated that a long time ago. I've realized long ago that it's much better to just kind of go in some direction than not to go. A decision, very often. But at the same time, that's a part of the thing. If you're just always making a decision and it has no direction to it, you're still not going anywhere. You're still not getting anywhere. And so the difference, the thing that I'm going to try to get more out of this and try to put more into it, is instead of just kind of going off on random tangents with no direction, I want to try to focus more on having everything kind of not necessarily steer toward a central focus, Certainly, things are still going to be tangents, but I definitely would like to sort of have the thing be like a flight. You know, we take off, or we do the pre-flight, line up, take off, and then, you know, fly around, do some stuff, accomplish the mission that we're trying to set out to do, and then come back in for a landing, you know, be safe, have everything work out. You know, things might be a little bumpy from time to time. Something might go off that I'm not intending to have go off or not expecting. Kind of roll with it and not have that throw me off all the way. Not have that destroy the flow. Not have that keep me from getting where I want to be. And, you know, where I want to be is not necessarily in these sort of episodes. It's not like I'm setting out, and I don't think this is going to be, at least anytime soon, like I'm setting out to say X, Y, and Z. And I'm certainly not trying to like have a thesis by any means, and then, you know, like a standard essay format kind of thing. And you set the stuff up, and then you go through defending it, and then you kind of like do a conclusion, that kind of thing. I don't want to do that. I still want to have it be relatively free form. I don't want to impose too much structure, but I definitely do want to be here in the moment, aware of what's going on, and thinking, you know, like a little bit more just presence, a little bit more mindfulness, and kind of say, okay, this is where I am. You know, I'm here physically in this space. I'm saying these things. These are the things that I've already said. These are the things that I kind of want to say. This is the point I'm trying to get across. And what is the best move that I can make right now to accomplish that? And, you know, again, I don't know that this will necessarily come across as a difference for you, but for me, putting these together, it's a radically different kind of philosophy. Generally speaking, what I would be doing is just essentially rambling, and, you know, rambling with no direction. I might have like, I want to say this and this, but basically just kind of like all over the road. You know, I might go this way, I might come back this way, I might go back that way, go in some other direction. And, you know, things happen, but it would be kind of out of control. I still am not going to go from like A to B. You know, I'm going to go a little over here and a little over here. Hey, that's interesting. Let's go over here. Maybe even backtrack a little just to check things out. Maybe overshoot and then come back, that kind of stuff. But basically, instead of just a complete random walk that may happen to get me where I want to be, I'm going to have a little bit more of a bias toward what I want to go to and what I want to say, what I want to do. And again, it's not going to be like, yeah, I'm not planning on making these scripted at all. I'm not planning on making them something where, you know, I have a specific thing that I'm setting out to do beyond, like, today, my motivating word is pilot. And I have a list of a few down here on the floor for future episodes. When I am working on one of these, that's going to be my organizing principle. So we'll see how this goes here, and as much here as in life. In life, I definitely, and I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing. I'm very comfortable with things just kind of, you know, going as they're going to go, and then make a decision when I have to make a decision. But otherwise, I'm just kind of like flowing, not flying. You know, that is my, you know, and it's kind of like, you look back, even the stuff, it's kind of weird because most people with that would probably not get a PhD or do other things like that. But for me, getting a PhD was as much that as, you know, as anything. I knew both of my parents had graduate degrees. I always knew I was going to get a graduate degree. It wasn't like they were forcing me to do it, but it was just, that's what people do. You go to high school, you go to college, you go to graduate school, and then, you know, something else. That's just like, and I think this is one of the secretly small, subtle things that really screws people over who don't have that kind of background, because a lot of people don't even know that's a possibility. You know, I could have just as easily gone into food service and just kind of like stumbled around forever, not had any kind of trajectory at all. So I do get from A to B eventually. And things like, you know, in undergrad, well, essentially what I did there to figure out what my degrees were going to be is look at the courses I want to take. And then I went through the course catalog and I kind of worked backwards. I reverse engineered, okay, I want these courses. What degrees can I get? What majors can I do? Which have those, and then a little bit more, and maybe, you know, I'm taking a couple of excess things, but I'm not really like, you know, steering that much. I'm just kind of doing what I want to do. And I guess that is a form of steering, but it's a different kind. Yeah, so I did that. I knew, I started out as a biology major, which is weird for me. Didn't want to do botany. And in retrospect, I kind of wish I would have done botany, but ended up going to microbiology, which was fine. I liked the course. Had a bit of a crush on my Mike 206 teacher, which is crazy to even say, but at the time, one of my first probably teacher crushes. And well, there was, I don't think this qualifies as a teacher crush. My freshman year of high school, there was Miss Stites. And the crazy fucking thing is she's probably like in her 50s or 60s now. I mean, who even knows? But Miss Stites always wore these like super tight, short like leather skirts and things. And yeah, I wasn't really, I certainly wasn't sexually active, but I wasn't even really that sexually activated at the time, if that makes sense to you. I had, you know, like some interest, like a vague interest, but it wasn't really directed. It wasn't that focused. But I did have like the parts of my brain that were into some of the curves and, you know, some of the boobs and stuff. That stuff was kind of coming online. So I enjoyed it, but it wasn't really a crush. Somehow between my senior year of high school and like freshman year of college, that started coming on more, like more directed interest. Still was a couple years from, well, probably like 4 years from being able to date or anything like that. But it started being something that I was interested in, like in a serious way. And yeah, so had that teacher. That probably didn't like factor majorly in, but it was probably not the smallest thing. It probably helped influence my choice to go to microbiology. And then I wanted to take these math courses, so why not get a math degree? I also wanted to take, I mean, part of this was my, you know, you have a certain set of general studies courses and liberal arts courses. And some of those I wanted to take kind of ended up lining up really well. First with an anthropology minor. I had major and minor in my head. An anthropology minor. And I could have taken like an extra course or two, like, well, I'm basically a semester, and gotten an anthropology degree. Although I already had 2 undergrad degrees in 4 years and a minor. I don't think getting a third one was going to help, and especially if it was like an extra semester. And also, when you're like 21, a semester seems like it's crazy how much your perspective changes on time. Semester back then seemed like a big deal. Another semester, more or less now, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal. It's funny actually, you know, and certainly like the time in front of me, the road ahead, I don't know that it's shorter than the road behind, but you know, it's definitely not that much longer. You know, like I see, yeah, at one point in your life, you're kind of like, I understood the concept of life is finite. I understood that, you know, from high school, that people die, all of this stuff. But you kind of still have this feeling like, you know, it's like an infinite stretch, or effectively infinite stretch. And then you start getting older and you start, you know, you're like, oh shit, you know, this is, it's much less ahead than you realize or than you'd like. And so you kind of like, yeah, shit. But at the same time, so, you know, time is more precious. At the same time, you know, if I was doing a PhD now and it's like, oh, you're going to take another year, it'd probably not be that big of a deal. especially not if like finances were not the way they are. The fact that taking a semester of school at ASU, when I took, well, I'm going to date myself here a little bit, but when I went to undergrad, a semester tuition at ASU, including fees, was like $1,000 or maybe $1,500. And I don't mean that was like the bare minimum. I mean, I was maxing out on course load. I was taking the limit of what you could take without getting an override. And I think one semester or two, I even got more than that official limit. Like maximum full-time thing. And that was it. And now it's not twice that, it's like 5 or 6 times that. It's like over 10K per year in tuition and fees for a state school. And for a state school in a state where our Constitution literally says that higher education, college universities, public universities, should be as close to free as possible. And even at that 1,000, 1,500 range, at the time it was like, okay, $1,000, it hurts, but it's not that bad. The books were expensive. Expensive being like $50 for a book. I had one book, a virology book, that was over 100. It might have been 150 even. But it was like this massive book, and it was the rare, rare exception. Today, if you go to undergrad, you get a book, just a shitty normal textbook. It's like 100, 150 bucks. And this is not inflation, by the way. This is like hyper inflation. And it's that much. And also you can't use the one from last year because they've made changes or they're, different requirements, whatever. And maybe the professor wrote the book, that seems like hyper questionable. Especially, it would be fine if there was no profit motive. But if I write a book and I get 150 bucks per sale, or the sale is that, and I get, some fraction of it, I should not be telling you that you have to buy that book to take my course. If I write the book and I give you the book for free, or like basically at cost, that's different. But and I'm not saying that you shouldn't make money off of stuff. Although this whole obsession with money as like the central organizing principle is just dumb. It's so fucking dumb. And also, I mean, it causes people to do just the wrong things so often. So often. There are people who become doctors, for example, because they want to make a lot of money, or lawyers. And it turns out both of those professions, especially lawyers, you go to school, you do the bar, and you become like an associate or something at a law firm, working ridiculous hours and making fuck all money. And you want to be a partner, but you have to really bust your ass to do it for years, and it may never happen. And even if it does happen, we might give you like a partner name and title that doesn't really count like a partner used to be like 30 years ago. University, you go in, you want to be, you get your PhD. Okay, you got a PhD now. You can be an associate professor and make like literally like 30,000 a year, 40,000 a year, teaching, have no security at all. You're on like a 9-month contract, easily fired. And there's no, even from there, there's like no trajectory upward. I mean, some of those people make like 50 or 60K, which is still not great, but you have a PhD, you're like, geez. And if you want to be a professor, you have to bust your ass and, go through you do the PhD, you do a postdoc, bust your ass on the postdoc, bust your ass on the PhD, and then you fight and, claw your way into the sort of low-level tenure track position. And then you spend years and years getting publications and meeting all these requirements, doing all of the committees and bullshit. And then maybe you get tenure, and tenure is not what it used to be. Versus, this is fucked up, and this is part of why ASU's tuition costs so much, versus they have now this administrative class, which often, many of those are PhDs too, and a lot of them are not, but they're making 150, 200, 250, 300,000 salaries, which, okay, there are bigger jobs you could go to, but considering you're in administration for a public university and you're doing stuff that probably is at best, most generously, you're maybe neutral. And at worst rather, you're basically just a parasite draining the fucking money out of the school. Yeah, pretty fucked up. People incidentally do like to focus on like sports, and there are many fucked up things about sports. But the weird thing about this, because the coach is making more than the university professor by a lot, and you're like, oh shit, this is fucked up. Well, the difference is that the coach in the athletics department is actually paying their salary. They're making that money. It's not like taxpayer dollars and tuition money. That money is coming from revenue. The fucked up part about that, of course, is NCAA rules require that the student athletes, I think they're getting better about this slowly, but the student athletes can't have any compensation at all. Which it makes kind of sense, I guess. They come into the university, they have a scholarship. They don't really get to use the scholarship because, you can't, I'm not saying like this never happens, but for the most part, if you're not really motivated to study, the sports are like, you can kind of study a little bit, but mostly focus on sports. You do that, and then you get injured or something, or you get cut. Now you lose your scholarship, and so you've gotten this thing, you've gotten an injury, you're not going anywhere, and you got fucked out of the education that you were there for. And if you are a star athlete and you do well, the school makes shit tons of money off of you. Crazy amounts, actually. And you get fuck all. And you could get injured and all of this. So it's a really fucked up situation. And so you've got law firms are like that, universities like that, healthcare, the amount of administrators making fuck tons of money. This is just a general problem in business. And not business, government, whatever. People are making, and there's nothing, again, I don't begrudge people from making a good living, but if you're gonna do that, add some fucking value, right? Don't be just a troll and a parasite slurping off of all this other stuff and costing, like the hospital administrators, the people who are sitting there, the amount of people whose job, literal job, full-time job, and even career is basically just dealing with insurance companies. The insurance company has a bunch of people trying to deny claims, and hospitals and medical providers, all of these other things have people trying to get the claims, filed correctly and approved. All of these fucking jobs, and I mean, again, it's great that people have jobs, but all of these jobs are just parasitic drag. There's no need for any of that shit. It's one of the reasons why this for-profit model is so fucked and dumb. And again, for-profit for certain things makes some sense. For-profit for healthcare, fucking dumb. For-profit for education, no, fuck it. And it's annoying that you have these public universities that are not supposed to be private schools. They're not supposed to be for-profit universities. And they get run like a private institution. Except, it's kind of a weird straddling, because if you run something as a business, in theory at least, you'd have to run it as a business. They're kind of public institutions. They're kind of, supplemented a lot. But they also are trying to get shit tons of patents. They're trying to, get revenue from people and all this stuff instead of, like the professor that actually is just interested in teaching and doing research. You can kind of go in your little hole. We want the guy who is getting big grants and getting big publications. And then you get stuff like, so all of that, people build up huge education debt, huge medical debt, huge whatever debt. And then people build up these little, like they'll make an announcement. Recently, NASA does this all the time. It drives me insane. This will be the last thing that I talk about for real. Announcement, they hype it up there. I go, oh, we're gonna have a big announcement about the moon. And then they do it, and it is an interesting announcement. It's like, okay, there's a small trace amount of water, for sure, molecular water, on the moon. Not surprising. People have kind of had a pretty good idea of this, but it was never really confirmed spectroscopically until now. And so it's it's a thing. It's a good thing, and I'm glad to know about it. But you don't have to make it out like, oh, I mean, the way they do this stuff, they do it over and over again. You'd think they were going to announce that we discovered extraterrestrial life. And in reality, it's like, oh, we discovered that, on a chunk of the moon the size of a football field, there's maybe like, not even a glass of water, like a tiny, tiny bit scattered. It's enough that if you made an industrial process and you extracted it out, you could do something with it. Although at that scale, if you're just doing it, the lunar regolith has a shit ton of oxygen in it. The moon, half of the month, you'll get a shit ton of sun, make a solar kiln, and pull that oxygen out, pull the hydrogen out, mix them together, and now you got water. You got oxygen too, which is nice. You can get much more of that much more easily than extracting out this already existing molecular water. Now, maybe there's some in the shadows and the craters. That's cool, but it's also like, it's cool and incrementally cool. It's not something that's cool in the sense of, oh yeah, this is a major game changer. So with that, pilot. Be a pilot, not a passenger. That is what I'd like you to do. That's what I'm going to do. We're going to try to do. And reasonably on target for time. So thank you very much. I hope that the quality of these things improves as I'm trying to do more of this. We'll see, but cautiously optimistic. You could, if you like, tell me how this one was compared to the other ones. Or if not. But anyway, thank you for listening, and 再见.